I was going to be so mad if Chio jumped. I don't know why, but I just thought that she was going to jump. I'm like, I don't know. I wouldn't put it past this story. I mean, she witnessed her parents dying. Why would she not witness a random classmate do something drastic like that? I'm like, please don't. And don't end the episode on it either. Okay, thank you. I just had this feeling of like dread the moment that it cut to that scene. I'm like, they haven't seen Chio in forever. She's in a really bad state. This is a girl that's been pretty much working towards this one thing for so long. And suddenly out of nowhere, society itself is pushing down upon her and saying that she can't succeed in the one thing that she wants to do, or at least she's going to be held down from what she actually wanting to achieve. Like, even if she gets perfect grades, they might still put her underneath other people. That's that bad state that she's in right now. And I'm like, please don't show that out of nowhere. Like, she suddenly shows up again and Assa's like, oh, Chio. Assa, who's legit finally getting over, and it's seemingly slowly but surely recovering from the loss of her parents. I love like so many moments in this episode show signs that she's accepting things. She's not 100%, like that whole comment about the book. She's not accepting everything, but she's slowly growing into, accepting this stuff. I like that little symbol of like loneliness where she's going over there and she's watering it, and she's like made her own little place there, and she's hoping that flowers will blossom from it. Something beautiful will come of it. And I think that's a sign of it with the whole idea of the birthday rather than the anniversary of the death. It's making something beautiful inside of something that is tragic. I think that's what Makio kind of gravitates to. Oh, that's a brilliant idea. It's not dwelling in that death. It's dwelling in some sort of celebration. Good job. I love that. Again, don't give her something tragic right now. Let Assa slowly get better. It doesn't work out that way for everybody, let's be honest, but I was hoping something positive. Just keep it in a positive state right now. I'm curious what Chio is going to be for Assa. I had my predictions around her a while back, and the idea that she was going to be somebody that was going to sort of like encourage her to speak out. But throughout the entire segment where she's learning to have a voice and she wants to go out and sing, it never really brought up Chio again. It was really around Makio's friend that was on the voice call. Like, she's like, I regret a lot of things. Do it. Do it. Don't worry about labels. Don't worry about what people think you are. Stand out if you want. Who cares? Don't say that you're not the type of person. I hate types. I regretted with the whole idea of types. It is interesting, and even in this episode, there is a lot of significance to like this series as a whole on the idea of social norms, expectations, and labels. This episode, we had Shingo, which we can get into right now as we dive into the episode. But quite a bit of this episode was Shingo running into Tono, the lawyer, and sitting down with him. We got a little bit of perspective of what Tono is as a person, getting the idea that he was a bookworm, which they mentioned before. His conversation with Makio, he mentioned the fact that he was like a mad, like insane bookworm. But he wasn't into fiction. And that was a problem for him when it came to socializing with people. It didn't seem like he really fit in with the crowds. And yes, even at work now, over time, he had problems with, people wanting to invite him out to drinks and whatnot, which is a very Japanese thing. I mean, it happens in the West as well. I mean, I've had jobs where we go out and, have drinks together, whatever. But it's definitely a thing in Japan. This idea, this expectation that when you get invited, you go out. Like, if you don't, then you're going to kind of get isolated from the group. So every single time somebody wants to go out and drink, you have to go with them, especially if the boss wants to go out. The boss, your supervisor, your manager wants to go out, you have to go. It's an expectation. If you don't, it's kind of seen as rude. It's seen as extremely rude. Whereas him, he's not really fit into those crowds. He doesn't like being pressured into drinking, and Shingo seems to agree the same thing. But it all comes down to this idea, again, like I said earlier, the idea of, labels and expectations and all that kind of stuff of society. The idea that Shingo's like him. I don't like to be pressured either. And I found that, I had to keep pushing back on that stuff. And Tono's like, yeah, me too. Totally agree. Like, he's gonna, yeah, exactly. I had to keep pushing back until they eventually don't, invite me. Which, he felt bad at first. But then at the same time, he accepts it. Like, that's best because I don't fit in with that group. The way that he puts it is masculine, like, normalities or whatever. Like, this is like this normal ritual thing that masculine people do. You have to do this one thing because that's what society thinks you're supposed to do. As a male, this is the cool thing you're supposed to do. And it goes into Shingo and sort of what he's experienced in his life, which I at first found this completely confusing in the way that was worded, but I get what it's talking about here. And I don't know if it's a lost in translation thing or just how it's worded, but it gave a sense this idea that he had expectations for him. Father had expectations for him. We've seen that before. He messed up this one time and dad just like had that disappointed look on his face. They didn't yell at me or anything. He just was disappointed, and that was all it took to just crush me. Again, like I said back then, 100% feel that. 100% feel that. He had these expectations placed upon him and these normals that people wanted him to do. And eventually he found that he just kind of stopped. He stopped going for that one thing and he accepted, getting away from those rituals. And it was better for him. He was much more comfortable. Life was much more easier after that point. But I would say that it kind of gives me a hint here that that's what sort of molded him as well. I think it's sort of giving a feeling here that his experiences with his father, the experiences with trying to, be on that bandwagon before eventually jumping off of it, getting away from those rituals that everybody expected you to do, talk about the girl skirt, crushed by peer pressure, all this kind of stuff that they have. I finally pushed it away, and now suddenly things made more sense to me. I was able to be, what he was putting it, specifically calm and composed, I think is what he put it. It was referencing to the way that Tono's seen Shingo and how he was reacting to the situation with Assa and everything like that. And how he's responding to now Assa questioning Tono on the idea of being yourself, being the one that you want to be. That was the question. And how he's looking very, composed. Yeah, I got that from just kind of experiencing this and eventually jumping off the bandwagon. What I think he's saying here is that, yes, for most people, like even Shingo's father, when it came to a serious situation, how did his father react? Stern and looking away. Disconnected. Disconnect is the key thing there. Shingo's dad seems like a disconnected person. And again, that comes from masculine rituals. It comes from male-centric rituals. It comes from the idea that you're not supposed to be nurturing. You're not supposed to be connecting to your children. You're supposed to be the stern man of the house and strong and not emotional. That's what Shingo's father was. He disconnected from that, and now he's able to sort of contemplate things, try to understand things, be compassionate, be connecting to the situation. That's what Shingo's doing. Let me think about it. And when they went to go find Assa, he's trying to connect with the situation. He's trying to be a part of the situation. Whereas normally it was like, well, Makio can figure it out. I don't have to be there. Again, I think that's what they're sort of saying here, but it feels a little bit jumbled in a sense. But either way, it comes down to compassion, I think, because even in the end, Shingo thinks about his father and how he was telling him, quit crying, be a man. The thing that he did when he lost his job, being emotional, being human, not trying to always hide your feelings and everything. I didn't realize that game of chicken was no real measure of my value. Again, he was fighting to try to seek out the thing that he thought his father wanted, and he failed. I jumped off the bandwagon and ran away. I think that made me a human. It gave me a backbone. Again, I don't think that you always have to be the stern father that has never really listened to the situation. Exactly what Assa's father was to her. Never connecting to her, never having some sort of connection for her. But the other thing that Shingo brings up here is something that I think comes with being molded this way is the fact that because he spent so much time trying to adjust to others, his father's expectations, what his mother wanted, because what his mother wanted obviously is what his father wanted. He had this sense that he's been adjusting himself for so long that that's what makes him connect to Makio so much, which I think is a really great reveal here as to why at least Makio works so well with him, is that he's used to people like Makio. He's used to trying to, navigate what she's going through. This idea of wondering why the heck would he even put up with Makio? She doesn't want to spend time with him. She's constantly lashing out at him. She's constantly distancing herself, locking herself up in the room, doesn't like social interactions a lot of the time, doesn't want to go out or whatever. He likes that. He likes kind of forming around her life. She's got this mold. She keeps sticking into it, and I'm just going to work my way around it. Wherever I can fit in this box, let me know when you're settled, and I'll get in there. It's sort of what I get with Shingo and his ability to sort of interact and bond with Makio. But yeah, going back, the whole core of this whole discussion really is around the fact that Tono is trying to ask him, what do I do with Assa's question here? She wanted to know what to do in order to be yourself. And this is an age-old question for adolescents. And Shingo's like, yeah, that old question. But they kind of hope that, through this whole experience that she can be someone that's calm and composed, just like Shingo. The other side of the episode, though, is, of course, Makio, and it starts off with her hanging out with Emity's mom. Can I say this? I think Emity's mom is turning out to be like the MVP of this entire series. It's so great because when we first met her, it was at the school, and it felt like she could have possibly be like a busybody. Like she's going to be the mom that keeps getting involved with everything. She caused that big problem with Emity and Assa initially because she contacted the school and everybody freaked out and it caused this big problem. I'm so happy that in the end, she's again, what I was kind of hoping back there was that she was genuinely like concerned for Assa. She was trying to get her help. She didn't know who Makio was. Right here, it's so sweet to kind of see the two of them kind of interacting, and it does seem like she's doing a lot to help Makio and helping her sort of both connect with Assa, see a motherly nature, and additionally as well, seemingly getting over her issues with her sister. It kind of starts the conversation out with the fact that, yes, I kind of wish that I knew about this place because we could drop by here while we're heading over to clear out Assa's old place. And she's questioning, man, that must have been really tough for you, right? How long did it take? Like over a week? She said, I should have stopped by there and seen you, but again, this is in Makio realizing that she's connecting with this lady, but at the same time, she was trying to distance herself for the longest time because this is how she is. She's like, I should have came by and said something to Emily's mom. Nope. You probably shouldn't have come by. I would have probably broke. Making this connection that, yes, Makio technically looks just like her sister. So yes, if she's seen Makio, she probably would have broke down. And it kind of nudges Makio a little bit here in the idea that, yeah, I've stopped seeing those ghosts too. And yeah, that kind of makes sense. I think it's been since probably after they cleared out the apartment, maybe a little bit after that Makio is stopping seeing her sister. Her sister used to keep popping up and saying things that she said back in the past, constantly like judging her. Oh, look who's the one that's not able to, give up. Look who's, holding on to the past. She kept popping up and criticizing Makio, but Makio slowly that stopped. I'm not seeing her ghost anymore. And I think that's probably because she's sort of accepting a lot about her sister. And this is one of those sad things that I'm wondering if it's potentially not being done well with the adaptation, because there is technically a scene somewhere in this segment of the story that Makio is starting to accept her sister's words a lot more. We've seen a little bit in the previous episode the idea that she's thinking about criticism from her sister and going, maybe she was right. Maybe she was right about that. It was the overthinking thing. When Assa criticized Makio for overthinking everything and not understanding what Makio was saying, Makio recalled her sister's words and the fact that she's covering up for herself and, overthinking things. And she said, maybe she was right. Right here in this episode, in this segment, there's a little bit of extra when Assa goes to leave the house and she says something effective like, maybe she'll figure it out, but maybe she won't find that answer. Right here, Makio recalls her sister and says, man, for her to have raised this child at such a young and fragile age, she's given her sister credit. There's more so right now happening with Makio where she's starting to accept her sister a lot more. And I think that was a really bold statement right there for her to praise her sister for pulling off what she's struggling with right now. Makio's, yes, handling Assa in a very volatile moment in her life. This is like the point right here in teenage years where they're lashing out, they're trying to figure themselves out, they want to push back against society and their parents and everything like that. Asa's in a really nasty point in her life that's going to be very vicious. Her mind's accepting things or rejecting things. But her sister handled this from that age. Her sister was very young, has Assa, and has been raising her. Damn, she pulled it off. That's good stuff. It's really cool. Anyways, going back to the conversation that she has with Emily's mom, I like that little later part where as they go to leave, she's like, you know what? Hey, if you want to send her over every now and then, take a break. I'll take care of her. You can have a breather or whatever. Makio is still not wanting that. It's interesting. It kind of implies the idea that she believes that Assa wouldn't be comfortable somewhere else. But either way, it kind of implies the idea that she's like, no, she has a little more time. She needs some more things to kind of figure out for herself. It's very interesting. But she says, bit by bit, she has to figure things out on her own. And then she says, glad she has you in her life. I like that. I like that kind of acceptance there. The idea of, like, again, from back at the starting point, it felt like Emily's mom was very unsure about this random person taking care of Assa. Now right here, she's saying she's in good hands. She's in good hands with you. It's so sweet. I love this lady so much. Jumping to the last bit, though, it looks like Assa ends up winning the auditions. She's got a song coming up that she has to perform, and she's trying to, practice. Makio giving her compliments, and eventually, yes, Assa questioning how she can get better at writing. Makio lights up. She just lights up. Why do you get so excited whenever I say something like that? I love seeing people try new things. But yeah, she's wanting to know how to do better at writing, and she says that, you can try to write your favorite lyrics, which I think is sort of like, take a song that you liked before, sort of write it yourself and try that out, see if it can kind of expand you there, which makes sense to me. But additionally, Makio brings up her journal. And I guess it was like an assumption that I had at some point, the potential of her kind of bringing her words from her journal to life. similar to what Makio did. Again, Makio took what I presume is her journal and turned it into a story that she's selling now. Here's the funny thing. At some point, she's like, oh, you have to be intentional this time or something like that. And it brings up the idea of, wait, you told me to write lies in my journal, or at least you told me not to be truthful in my journal. And Makio's like, wait, I said that? Yeah, you did. I don't remember saying that. I found this so funny because it's like one of those moments where you're like wondering, did the author of this manga suddenly realize that they boo-booed here? Or is it like literally a thing of like Makio just can't remember? It makes sense though, right? Because way back here, when Makio told her that was like a year ago. Makio told her that, and she didn't know the context, or at least she forgets now the context as to why she said that. And Assa obviously took it however she did back then, and now she's presenting it back to Makio in her own way. So it's throwing off Makio. So it makes sense that right here, suddenly she's like, well, yeah, I guess as long as you don't lie to yourself, it's perfectly fine. It was probably less about what to write, like purposely go out and just write a bunch of lies. More so it was what not to write. Don't write about things that you don't want to write. And I think that was it. If I remember correctly back there, it was an aspect where she didn't know what to write, and she knew that she was in pain or whatever. And it could be an element of just don't worry about like writing about the pain. You don't have to write about the death. You can write whatever you want. Write whatever you want. Nobody can tell you what to write or not to write. And again, I feel like this has a lot to do with, again, Makio's own perspective, that she wrote fiction. She wrote a story from her life. She didn't want to write, names in there. She didn't want to write her sister's name in there when she talked about how she had problems with her. So she made characters up. Again, I assume that was the sort of the mindset there. But again, I get the fact that she's like, I don't remember saying that. Did I say that? Did I really say that? That's weird. Okay, as long as you don't lie to yourself, it's perfectly fine. Okay, go with that. Sure. Anyways, Assa goes to school, and yes, on her way out the door, she brings up the old question again. Do you think what was written in my mom's journal was true? She's like, what do you mean? Like you'd answer that. I understand this. Like, yeah, you're asking a question that you know that Makio's not going to answer. The question mark really there is how much of it did Makio read? She said something to the effect that she was reading a little bit into it and found that it was something that she wanted to keep for her until she got to a certain age, and then she stopped reading it. I don't know that Makio wanted to read anything else in that book. She was really just trying to figure out if she needed to give it to Assa. She doesn't want to read about her sister. I'm wondering if eventually she will read it. So I think that would be a very interesting perspective for her to acknowledge is, again, what was in that was a lot of regret from her sister. And it would be nice for her to see that. But it's a rough question in the end. Do you think it's a lie? And the question that she's asking there is if she loved me. That's obviously the question. That's what she was questioning at the very end when she read it. Assa was questioning, does she even love me? This could just be lies, just like Makio said. It is kind of nice that following the conversation where she's acknowledging Makio is saying, I didn't say to just go out and write lies. I was saying, you don't have to write everything. that might give her a feeling that, this whole idea of everything in a journal has to be lies is false. But with that, yes, we wrap up the episode with Assa making her own little place in the closet. I thought that was cute. Again, this is a very small apartment, so it's kind of Assa getting her own little, cubby. This is my room. She didn't have a room before. It was both their rooms, and she's always having to sleep right there while Makio is just, typing away. Granted, it's not big enough for her to be able to fit and sleep inside there. It's still a cool place for her to go, a little nook to go in there and just hide away, write her journal or just read a book or something like that. It's nice to have a space. If in the end, if she can't use it for everything, it's just nice to have a space. And again, it was what she was saying, do whatever you want. I didn't expect this. You made your own place though. This is your own little place here. I think this little moment right here is so special because I feel Mama Makio right here. I just feel like Mama Makio coming out. The two of them, it's so precious right here. I love it. I love it to death. But yeah, Makio sees that she's finding her own place, piece by piece. You're complicating things again. You're complicating things again. But yeah, this is where she brings up the idea of doing the birthday instead of the day of their death, which I think, again, is a nice thing that kind of shocks Makio a little bit here. Because, again, Makio's like, hey, your anniversary's coming up. You got to do something. You don't have to do anything, but, consider it. Consider doing something for the anniversary. We'll figure it out at that point. And Assa's kind of throwing it back in the idea of trying to give it a little bit of a positive spin here. I don't want to go and celebrate death or acknowledge death. I just want to see something positive. My parents always did this thing. Can we do this thing? They always celebrated their birthday together. Let's do that. That's a brilliant idea. we'll do that. Again, I think it's Assa sort of taking this painful thing that has a social norm to do, which Makio is presenting, and giving it something positive. Let's instead do this thing over here. That's a brilliant idea. It's not something she would really acknowledge. Now, the question mark I have here is really, what is the follow-up scene here? And I think it is really Makio slowly opening up her heart to Assa. In response to this whole idea, she says it's brilliant, and then she starts to see the first moment that she met Assa in that hospital hallway, seeing her there, isolated, and her looking up at her. Then she goes off and she says, strange, I'm not even her parent. I think right here she's having a moment of seeing the growth in Assa, and it's swelling up inside of her. That's all I can think of. This is a seeing that contrast of where she was and where she is now, and I think she's proud. I think it's a moment of being proud of Assa, as a mother would be. You've gotten over something really, really difficult. You're seeing a positive in things. You're accepting this, and you're doing something positive with it. I think there's a brief moment where she sees Assa as a daughter. And this is the big hope that would have eventually. Not that she has to 100% claim that, but that eventually that she would see Assa as a daughter. Because, again, to what Juno was saying, Juno was pressing upon Makio, it's not over when she graduates. It's not over when she goes to college. She's going to keep coming back to you. And Makio was positive to that. I think this could eventually lead to, hopefully, and with the end of this core, with the last episode next week, at least an acceptance of that. Because it's obvious that we're not going to get into, Makio having some big revelation with her sister. I think that's been a slow process as well, which I think is true to the sort of message of this entire series. And it's a good message. The idea that Assa and Makio never have some grand awakening to finish this series out. The finale doesn't have to have them have a grand awakening. And I don't think we're going to get to... I think we're probably like 70% through the manga. We're not going to get to the end of it unless they completely botch anime original end, skip 40 chapters, which they've done quite a bit of skipping already, but they're not going to skip all this content and say, here you go, here's the ending. We can at least give a positive message to this core and this finale, and the idea that in the end, like real life in a lot of cases, you don't have a aha moment and everything gets fixed. Again, Asa's watering that cactus. Again, Makio is acknowledging her sister did some good stuff. That's enough. So we'll see. Anyways, that's my thoughts on episode 12 of Journal with Witch. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below. If you like this content and you want to support the channel more, become a member of the channel. Until next time, take care.